Yeah, you'd never worked for anybody. That you were only at Costco for a few days, and that this was your job. Like you'd never done anything else. It was just really interesting. We had
That's
this
funny.
interesting conversation last night.
So you've already done the podcast in your dream.
I think I have, yeah.
Sorry, this is gross. And we're recording, by the way. It's already started.
Really?
Yeah, this is how I go in. There's no intro. I like things to happen organically, and the mic's picking up a little bit of my conversation. So
Okay.
yeah,
Well, I was
because
going.
it's supposed to be again. I don't
Yeah.
want to overproduce it. It's not supposed to be. Check. It's not supposed to be scripted, obviously, and I just like coming in all natural, if you will.
Well,
Don't make it naughty. That's not what I meant.
I think the camera's picking you up, and that's not the case
That
right
is,
now.
that is not where I was going with that. Oh my God. Josie, cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for the green tea.
Oh, you're so welcome. Welcome to Thursday. Thank you so much for having me.
Thursday is my favorite day of the week because that's my first day off. I have Thursdays and Fridays off. So this is the start of my weekend. Sorry, I will mind my feet. I am going to do a little intro, but since you've already listened to a few of my podcasts, I think, and
Yes.
you've probably heard me in some of the other ones, I'm always like, gosh, I don't want to have to go through the intro every time because if someday I actually get a bunch of regular listeners, I don't want them to have to hear the story. But so you know the origins of why I started this.
I do, yes.
Perfect. All right. I am going to do a little intro. This is Sparrow, the stage name. Real name is Josie. But we met, and I don't want to embarrass you, but I'm kind of gonna. We met because I was literally getting off my shift at Costco. I work in the tire shop there. I was actually in the locker room getting my safety equipment off and putting it in my locker. And I just happened to wander back out because at the end of the day, I have to wash off all the grease and stuff. And I stepped out of the locker room, and you were standing at the bay doors like a lost child. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm still on the clock. So I went over to ask what you wanted. And you were like, so I bought the windshield wiper solution.
Which I was very proud of, that I found it and actually purchased it.
You're like, and I feel like you made some comment about, I have I have a girly question, something like that.
Extreme girl question.
Yes, you were like, so I can't believe I'm doing this. But I don't know where to pour this in.
No clue. No clue.
So I was like, yeah, I can help you with that. You had a very nice car, but so I go over there with you and you pop your hood and I show you where it is. And as we're talking,
do I get credit for knowing how to pop my hood?
Oh my gosh, you get so much credit.
I think that's like a solid punch in my boy card.
Yes, you have a man card and I will punch it several times.
Thank you.
So now I don't think since we haven't actually talked in person since that first meeting and we've only exchanged messages on Instagram. I wanted to ask you, and maybe I did in a message, as I'm filling your reservoir for the windshield wiper.
Yes.
Out of the blue, and I still don't know how you knew this, you just said, oh, you play guitar.
Yeah, well, I think...
Was it the calluses on my fingertips?
It wasn't. I think, if I remember right, and I might be wrong, but I believe that I had a couple of guitars in my car.
You did. You said you had one, at least one.
Yeah, I think you saw one.
Oh, yeah. No,
No?
I don't know, because I remember after you made the comment that you play guitar, I actually said, yeah, actually I do. How did you know that?
Okay, wait. Were your fingernails painted black when we met?
Yes.
Okay, that's what it was. I saw that your fingernails were painted black.
So you thought I was Nuno Betancourt.
Well, I thought maybe you had young children.
No, my daughter is 31.
Right. And then so I think I asked you that. And then when you said, no, I don't have any children that are that young. So then I said, oh, musician.
That is so funny. Now that you say it, that totally makes sense, but I never would have made that connection. But it's because I had painted nails. Yeah. That is so funny. Oh my God.
Black painted nails, yes.
Yes. Well, they weren't black. It was a super dark purple, really dark purple with some sparklies on it. And I know my nails look terrible now. I'm going to go back and get another mani soon. But at some point, I'm trying recently to get on the Dave Ramsey program. Do you know who Dave Ramsey is? He's a financial guy.
Yes.
And luckily, through my job at Costco, I get free access to his entire program. It's part of the benefits. So I've been getting on that, and I'm like, can I really justify the $35 plus I have to tip them, once a month? I'm like, that's a luxury. I don't need to keep doing that.
Agree.
But anyway, that is the story. And then, so that's how we met. And then once you asked about the guitar thing, and then you were like, yeah, I also do this. And I forgot how the conversation went. But, you kept referencing the Fish House that I didn't even know was there in that Costco parking lot.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, I performed there. I was like, and then somehow we got down to you told me about the jam session that happens at the 99 Saloon.
Right. I asked if you played out, right?
Yeah.
And you were like, no, I don't. But, that you really loved guitar. And I think you told me how many you have, which I think was a high number. Just two?
Just two, yeah.
Oh, boy, do I have some guitars to sell you. but I asked if you played out, and it sounded like you really wanted to. And so I told you about the jam because it's a great jam. It's a nice way to get comfortable. That's how I started playing out.
Yeah.
Was not that jam, but another jam.
Okay.
It actually took me 2 jams to get comfortable. The first time I went to a jam, it was in, and I never say this city correctly, but Yakult.
Yakult.
Okay, Yakult.
And I might be wrong, but I've heard everybody say Yakult.
I
don't know.
However I say it, I know I'm saying it wrong.
So the locals are going to be offended.
Yeah, so shout out to the members of Yakult.
We love Yakult or Yakult.
Yes.
Whatever your preference is.
Yes. So I went to a jam there, and I tried to play a song. It was Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah. Okay. And it was...
You did the other night.
Yes, but Hallelujah is a finger-picked song, and it's not an easy song, and it was a horrible first choice to play, for the very first time ever in public. And so I got up on stage, and I couldn't remember a thing. I just stood there, and I tried a few different finger-pick patterns, and nope, it was gone, completely gone. So I left in full shame. Actually, left and didn't do anything else. I was like, I can't remember this, so I walked off, and I was just thinking, this isn't my thing. And the gal that I knew at that point, Jeannie was her name. She played out a lot.
Okay.
She made me go to another open mic at Pied Piper Pizza. And
the one on 4th Plain.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Right. They used to have a really nice open mic there, and it was. That's when I tried some less ambitious songs and finally got comfortable, and 2, 4, 6, that led to more stuff. Yeah. So open mics are a great way to get comfortable playing out.
Yeah, because theoretically the audience has no expectation. They're not expecting to see greatness, right? So theoretically there's no pressure.
Theoretically, although I would argue now that an audience of musicians.
Oh, they're going to judge you. Because the regular people that show up for the open mic, you're fine with, but you also see all the other people that are waiting to perform.
Yes.
And they're just sitting back there going,
tick, tick, tick.
Yeah. Somebody put the red light on.
Yeah.
Her time's up.
Right. Hey, yeah, your song was 4 minutes long. You shouldn't get a second one.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So the fact that your first experience didn't go well in your mind is kind of funny because
I think it was everybody's mind.
That is how you that is how you learn. You have to, like a reference to like stand-up comedians, you learn when you bomb. That's how you learn to get better. So everybody has to go through that, I think.
Yeah.
And
yes.
But so you picked a song that was kind of difficult instead of picking just a campfire song. Like,
right.
Give me the 3 chords,
right.
G, C, and D. If you can do that all night and play 90% of the stuff that's on the radio now. But for some reason, you picked that one.
For some reason, right? And, one of the things that I love about music is I think it's a microcosm for life, for everything in life, right? And I was so I don't want to use the word dumb, but I
Um,
was so
Uninformed.
uninformed, right? That I didn't know what I didn't know. So I didn't realize that I was picking a song that was overly ambitious.
And that's a great metaphor for every aspect of life is you don't know what you don't know.
That's very true.
Yeah.
And when you don't know what you don't know, then that's when, you're just shooting in the dark, right? And so until you do that, you really don't have parameters to be able to move forward.
Yeah.
And without a doubt, the times that I've moved forward mentally or physically or emotionally have been those times that have been just, horrendous, So that first open mic was probably really important for me.
So is it Hemingway? Through struggle comes enlightenment, something like that. That's a saying that I love. You don't grow until you've gone through some shit. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and we don't have to be gratuitous about it, but you can curse on this. Obviously, you've listened to some of the other episodes I've done.
Can I just whip out like the 7 Carlin words just to get it
Let's
out
just
of the
get
way?
them out of the way.
Yeah.
Do I know all of them?
Okay.
Obviously, it's fuck shit. Is it fuck shit? Asshole? Because I think you can say ass on the radio, but if you put the hole on the end, you can't. Because I hear like radio DJs say ass,
Okay.
but they won't say asshole. Somehow that makes it worse.
Okay.
I don't know what the other ones are.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe I know some of the others, but
We don't have to go down this road,
Yeah.
but that's
I
fine.
do. In full disclosure, the word asshole has been very important to me developmentally, and so I'm quite certain that I'll be
please
using
expand
it
on
at some
that.
point. Okay, do you really want me to expand
Yeah,
right now?
why is asshole been so therapeutic or important to you?
Okay, so I'm relationship girl, right? I've been in a relationship my whole life, and I was in a relationship since I was a teenager until 2020, and 2020 was a hard stop for me. It was like an overnight situation where
Just something switched,
I
caught off guard.
well
And I should also preface it by obviously talk about whatever you're comfortable talking about. I'm not trying to
100%.
extract anything. So
No.
whatever you want to share.
100%.
Feel
Like
free.
it's part of how I, really kind of process the idea of doing this was, 100%. I agree with Paul Young, when he talks about, it's the stuff that we hide that becomes a poison to us. And
Yeah.
I think that's definitely the case. And it was the case in my life and even the hard stop in 2020. So July 23rd of 2020,
You remember the date, obviously. It was traumatic.
I'll remember it forever. So I've been, in this marriage, in this relationship with this person, my entire life. Thought it was my best friend, my business partner, and he had become like increasingly weepy and erratic. And I thought it was because he was getting ready to retire, and he was so invested in his job as who he was as a person, which I think is a common.
So that
thing
was
for a
like
lot of
his
guys.
identity.
That was his identity,
Okay.
right? And so he was crying all the time, and he was, more and more, I hate to use this word, but I will, abusive. I mean, in what he was saying and how he was treating me, and
Mentally
all
and
of that.
emotionally abusive.
Yes, yeah. And even threatening physically,
Oh,
so the
I'm
police
sorry.
were getting called and things like that,
Okay.
right? So, but like a frog in water, you kind of get used to stuff, and so, I was just, thinking, well, I just need to work harder. So I just need to make him happy, right? So if I, jump higher or run faster, I can make him happy. And, so it was like ridiculous. Like, he was saying, maybe you're not really who I want, maybe I want somebody with darker skin. And so instead of being offended and saying like, dude, you've been my husband for like decades, I'm not auditioning for the part.
You started tanning?
Yeah, I start going to a tanning salon and getting spray tans, and he was just it was like that. So we had the evening of July 23rd, he wasn't home, and
But we're right in the kind of the worst part of the pandemic.
yes,
Yeah.
right. And he wasn't home, and I was in bed. It was maybe, you know, it was after midnight, and I heard, this voice, get up. Tonight's not the night to sleep, is what I heard directly. And so I got up, and I was really concerned that he might be suicidal, because he had been talking about being depressed, and like I said, he was crying all the time. And so I really thought that, I mean, at this point, I solidly had a superhero cape tied on. I'm gonna help this person, right? This
Right.
is my person. I'm gonna help him. So my bad. So I started, calling around and thinking, he might, take pills, because he had talked about that. He has a gun in his car. I was really concerned about that. I wasn't thinking that he was doing something else, although all the signs were there. And uh, 246, I ended up like finding him that night coming out of an apartment in Gresham that we were paying for. So
But you guys lived here in Vancouver?
yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
But you went out looking for him and just started looking for the places that he might and obviously if you had a place in Gresham, that was an option. So why wouldn't you check that?
Well, but we didn't have a place in Gresham. He had been paying for an apartment in Gresham that he stashed a sex worker in. So what ended up unraveling that evening was that, and once I caught him, and he was humbled enough at that moment to disclose everything to me with quite a lot of pride, actually. Once he was actually caught, he said, "Yeah, I have this porn addiction, and it started, this way, and it led to me going to the clubs, and then it led to me paying for prostitutes, and this one prostitute, and he told me her name. She's 34 years old, and he was proud of that, because at that point he was 59, and he didn't think that 34 was really that young. But he said she's 34. She's a sexually trafficked woman from Mexico, and she has this 4-year-old daughter. And isn't this what our money is for? Is to help people like this?
Sounds like he's kind of trying to justify.
Yes.
And when you said that once he was caught, he came clean, but almost with a sense of pride,
With a huge sense of pride, like
which that's
some of what he
kind of messed up. You
Well-
shouldn't have pride about that. Oh, okay, but
Yeah,
I guess that's a
exactly.
defense mechanism.
Well, there's your should, right? We can't
Yeah.
really should on anybody.
I feel like we can should about some things. Like he should not have done that.
Well,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, it ends up being like really good for me, eventually. But yeah, it was devastating. It really was. Like I kind of went into shock and just listened to him at first, and he told me with a lot of pride, yeah, her butt's not that small and her boobs aren't that big. Like he's explaining to me what a good person he is, because she's not his physical ideal, right? And my initial response was, oh my gosh, I need to get tested. And he was highly offended by that, and he scoffed.
He's offended.
Yes, and he said she is not that way. And I thought to myself, this isn't random.
I think my head's about to explode with all the reverse mental abuse and justifying that's happening right now.
You understand that?
I'm like, that's insane that he's even having these thoughts.
Yeah.
So
Right.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so that was my hard stop in life, right? And so I actually had paperwork drafted the next day, because he was in love with her. Like it wasn't like, oh, I'm so ashamed, I'll let it go, right? Although initially he was calling her names and saying, well, I keep wanting to get away from her, and she just pulls me back in. It became clear it had been going on for over a year, and she wasn't the only one. And anyway,
And I guess we should obviously not using names. So because I'm getting offended by this story, but I want to also be, is it empathetic? Not sympathetic, empathetic. He obviously had issues.
yes,
He has some emotional mental health issues. So I guess I don't want to pile on.
Yes.
He has a lot of work to do.
He does.
So,
He
yeah.
does. Yeah. So that was one of the things that I struggled with about this was, initially, like I said, I tied my cape on. I gotta help him. I gotta help him, right? And I tried to forgive him, and we actually sat down and watched The Shack together, and had these like spiritual conversations. But even as we were watching the movie The Shack, he starts crying and explaining to me that he's going to be giving her $30,000 because he had promised to. And it just became more and more clear, like in the balance, like from that day forward, it was him, essentially weighing me. And at that point, I was practicing attorney.
Oh.
So he was weighing me as a practicing attorney and, and his life contributor. We had built this, sort of like many businesses together. And I worked really hard, and I gave him every penny I made. It was his requirement was that if I kept any money, that it was emasculating to him. And so everything financially was invisible to me. And with a laugh, he would send me off to work every day saying, "Bitch better have my money, ha ha ha." And at the time, like, I thought, oh, well, that's just his sense of humor. But it's taken me a while, I'm in my third year of healing now. It's taken me a while, to sort of realize like what that was. So to circle back to your initial question, the reason the word asshole is important to me is because it wasn't until the summer of last year, like, people were nice to me, and I was sort of just moving through the world, developing, for probably the first time in my life, a community of people that just were kind and, accepting.
And was that new for you?
It's very new because in my prior life, I couldn't speak to somebody else. He would tell me everybody had a reason that they wanted, they wanted something.
An ulterior motive.
An ulterior motive. Yeah, the world was dangerous. Don't interact with the world, right? So it was very isolating, which...
This, he's a textbook narcissist.
Ooh,
This is exactly
yeah.
what my daughter, some of her podcasts, she talks about this because she's been in similar situations. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So it wasn't until like, last summer that I was sort of moving about the world thinking, what a glorious day. Like, people are so nice to me. And then it occurred to me, I'm not an asshole. And I hadn't realized, like, even without his voice in my ear any longer telling me nobody else would put up with your shit and you're such an asshole. Nobody can stand to be around you. And all of those things, like, I hadn't realized like how much I'd internalized it until like it actually was like a switch that flipped that day, that it was like, I'm not an asshole. And it's been so intensely freeing now to realize like I'm really not, like, I really just don't want to hurt anybody. I'm not, a bad person. I don't need to hide who I am. I'm not perfect.
But for 20 plus years, you kind of were doing that.
I would say more than that, because what I came to realize is he didn't, stumble on, this healthy person and victimize her. He stumbled on somebody that was already broken and believed that. I believed that of myself before I met him.
Yeah.
He just reinforced it.
Yeah.
So I kind of love that word asshole in that way.
Well, because in a way now the reference is you had that aha moment where you're like, oh, I'm not an asshole.
Yes.
He was the asshole.
Right. Yeah. So I actually thought about having a T-shirt made. I'm not an asshole with like exclamation marks, because it's just such a joyful
I would
way
buy.
to live.
I would buy one or 5.
Awesome. Maybe that'll be the merch. I've been thinking about making some merch to go along with my
Yes.
music.
That's
And-
actually an amazing slogan. I like it. So we should get into, because that's what the podcast is about. Origin story. So where are you from?
I'm from here.
Vancouver, born and
Yeah.
raised?
Born and raised, yeah, Hazeldale. Raised in Hazeldale, went to all the local schools here. Family's all still here.
Okay. You have children?
None that I know of.
Well, you would know. It's not like a man. You would
Well,
know.
I don't know. The 80s were crazy, right?
Oh, stop it. Siblings.
Yes.
Okay.
One older brother.
And is he in the area?
He is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he and his family are in the center.
Okay.
Yeah, mom and dad still married, still together, still living in a house in the center.
Oh, right on. That's cool.
Yeah.
And they've been married for a long time, obviously.
Yes, 62 years.
Oh my gosh. That's every time I hear, because obviously as a DJ, I did a lot of weddings. But it's funny every time I meet people that have been married for like 50 plus years. Part of me, the punchline is, oh my God, what do you guys talk about every day? Like when you wake up in the morning and you look at each other like, what do you want to do today? I don't know, kill you?
Yeah.
But there is magic in that when you find your life companion.
I don't know, man.
I still have hope. I still have hope because I've on my third marriage. I'm still married and everything's amazing. But yes, I've been divorced twice. So yeah, I've both times before that they were short, and I obviously wasn't ready for it. But I still believe in the institution of it. I don't necessarily think you have to be married to be happy. You just need to. It is nice to find your life partner. Doesn't matter if you're married or not. But it that's something that can happen at any age and any time. Men are usually slower to figure that stuff out. Because even in your 40s, a man still has a mentality of a 15-year-old because men are stupid and immature.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but you did.
Well, yeah, I can say it. It's been six plus years of therapy for me to start figuring that stuff out. Which, shout out to therapy. Everybody should do it. It's amazing. But let's go back to you. So have you ever lived anywhere else besides Vancouver?
I have, yes. As a part of my ex's job, we were moved every 5 to 6 years.
Okay. Did he work for an insurance company?
No.
Okay.
No.
We don't even, never mind. We don't have to go into details on that because I
Right.
don't want to expose him. So
Right, exactly.
I know people that are in the insurance industry and like in that kind of a job, if you want to move up in the world, you have to relocate.
Right.
So
Well, let's turn it into a game though. So you asked one question about it. You ask two more yes or no questions about.
Oh, geez.
You don't have to play this game.
I'm trying to think what the other options would be for traveling. I'm assuming it was in sales. No,
Loosely,
not really.
Not really.
Why would you have to travel?
It wasn't travel. It was relocation.
Well, I'm sorry. That's what I mean. I don't know. I don't know what yes or no questions to ask.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, that's fine. And we don't have to go down that road. So what other states or cities did you live in?
So we lived at the coast. So I was
Washington coast or Oregon?
Well, a little of both.
Okay.
Yeah, Warrenton, Hammond, Long Beach, and then Albany, Oregon.
Okay. Yeah, I know all those areas.
Yeah.
So you've lived in other areas, but not outside of the Northwest.
Correct. Yeah. Right. But so this is as a musician, this is my third act, right? So my first act was a lot of travel. I worked for an international food manufacturer.
Okay.
So the first one and the one I worked for the longest was based out of the Bay Area. And then I covered up to 12 states with them. So I did a lot of travel as part of my job for a number of years. Yeah.
And at some point you went to law school.
I did.
Which one?
So I actually got my law degree through the Rule 6 program in Washington State. So that's the way attorneys used to become attorneys.
Okay.
And that is interning or clerking for a judge or a attorney for 4 years.
Okay.
While you're taking prescribed coursework through the Washington State Bar Association with a liaison with the bar. So it's a 4-year, 12-month program.
But you didn't have to. So you didn't actually have to go enroll at a school.
Correct.
Nice. That actually makes. I'm assuming you were working another job while you're doing this.
Yes, and I was living at the coast too. So
Okay.
yeah, so it would have meant, having two households.
Yeah.
Since my spouse at the time was at the coast, I would have had to have,
Yeah, there'd be a lot of commuting. A
yeah,
second residence.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So and then we take the same bar as everybody else, right? But
Oh,
there's a
yeah, yeah.
15% better pass rate going through this version of law school.
And then what area of law did you end up practicing in?
So real estate's been my background. I've always been involved in real estate from the time that, that was even growing up. My parents had rental properties. My dad was in real estate. And so it just became sort of natural for me to start buying houses and almost immediately.
It's a smart investment.
Yeah.
In the end, they always gain value, even if there's a dip.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah. So when I got out of college, I bought a house and I was used to saving by that point. And so it just kind of happened by default. I think a lot of times the industries that we are in end up being, what we see in our family, right? So if you've got a dad that worked at a paper mill, then you're used to the paper mill, you go to the paper mill, right?
yeah.
So I had saved money forever, and it became sort of a natural progression. Like, what am I going to do after I buy my first house? Well, I guess I can buy a second, and rent the first one out. And so by the time I got married, I had 6 homes.
Oh, wow. That's better than most newlyweds start out with. That's actually
Yes.
really impressive. How old were you when you had 6 homes and got married?
I was in my early 30s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, wait, I thought you were only 35.
Exactly. Actually, I'm on the restoration of years plan, which is a biblical concept that if something evil steals your years, you get them back. So I like to say I'm 6, and that is kind of how I live my life now. This is the first time I've ever been like young. I've always been so type A. It's such a relief kind
Yeah.
of to let go of like all of this ridiculous responsibility and live the life I really am enjoying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I can relate to that. Yes. And gosh, it's more people should try that when they're younger.
I don't think I would have been smart enough to enjoy being young when I was young.
Right. You needed the perspective almost.
Yes. Yeah.
Your dad, you said, was in real estate. That's kind of influenced you. Your mom, was she just a housewife, or did she have a career?
She was mostly at home, I guess. I mean, she subbed at the school district,
Okay.
but didn't really have like a career she was involved in.
Yeah.
And they both they retired super early. My dad retired in his like early 50s, and
Because he made smart investments, I'm assuming.
I'm assuming
Yeah.
yeah. I know as much about their financial things as I did about my former life
Oh, geez.
financial
Okay.
things,
Yeah,
right?
that's funny. So he played everything close to the vest.
Yeah.
Mm. Then what? So let's talk about guitar. Was that something you had always dabbled in, or was that something that you picked up after the divorce?
Yeah, so it was kind of crazy. So I was at a yard sale with a friend of mine, Andrea,
Mm-hmm.
and there was I love music. I've always loved going out dancing. And when the club I used to go dancing at, you remember Refectory?
Oh my God, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Did you used to go there?
Not on a regular basis, but I've been there a few times. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So I used to go there, and it was like it was so gangster. It was fantastic.
Oh yeah, it's in the hood.
Oh. Yeah, I saw some stuff. Yeah, like I was there when there
You
were
have seen some
shootings.
shit.
I have, yes, yeah. My friend, we'll call her Flash because that's her nickname.
That works.
But yeah, one night Flash was hit in the face by a guy and got her nose broken. I've seen like I had my own bartender there, right?
Mhm.
And I've seen him like duck bottles being winged at him, and I've
Wow.
seen shootings there. But it was my spot, right? So that's where I used to go. And when it closed down, I started going to the Key, which had live bands.
Okay. I don't know where that's at.
The Key was the Red Lion on the water over here. It's actually
Off of I-5?
yes,
Oh,
the place
okay.
that was just torn apart.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
I didn't know there was ever a club there.
Yeah.
Okay. And so how many years ago are we talking you were doing the Key thing?
Not that many. So the key, when did the key stop? Gosh, I don't know. I'm terrible at years. I want to say like 2017-ish
Oh,
is
that
when
recent.
when it ended. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was like relatively recent.
Okay.
And
But that was more live music.
yes,
Okay.
it was all live music, which initially really irritated me because,
That's not my jam.
right? Yeah, I want to hear a DJ. I don't want the music to stop. I want the
15 years
blend.
as a DJ. Oh my God. I learned to hate people. No, I'm not going to play your stupid request because it's going to ruin my vibe. But I also, from a customer, because before I was a DJ, I was that same guy that was like, dude, play this. This will get the dance floor hopping, man. And whatever I want, you should just play. So I don't want to go off on a tangent there, but
you would have hated me because I would have requested Ludacris Step Back.
Punched
Step
you
Back.
in the face.
Do you know that song?
Yes, of course I do.
All right, try to clean that up and play it.
You can't.
I know.
Or you'll move, bitch. Get out the way. That one, like.
You don't know me like that. Oh my gosh, yeah, I used to love dancing to that. Like my friend and I, Flash, so Flash and I would dance together, and we had this whole thing where we're doing this like dance fight thing.
Yes, yes.
It was fantastic. So yeah, when that ended, I was sad. Like I've actually, honest to goodness, driven to where Refectory used to be, and it's now a Dollar Tree.
Oh.
And I have sat in the Dollar Tree parking lot and just looked at the building.
Just reminiscing.
Yes. But this is just not right. So the key was
But at some point, you went to the
Yes.
key and you had a switch where like, okay, maybe this live music thing is cool.
Yeah, at some point. So I was talking to my first guitar teacher, which he wasn't my first guitar teacher then. He was playing with a band called Full Zoo, and his first name is Kerry. I can never pronounce his last name, so I won't. But I was talking to Kerry, and I asked him, so, are you a full-time muse? And before I could finish the word, he said, midget? Yeah, I'm a full-time midget, because Kerry's about my height, right?
Okay.
And so anyway, he was funny, and he said, no, I do music lessons also. And so I talked to my spouse at the time and said, this would be really fun. I would really, have an interest in this. And he's like, no, musicians are bad. They just want to sleep with you. You can't do this. And so like some time went by, and I was at a yard sale with my friend, and there was this little like entry level Fender guitar and amp.
Acoustic or electric?
Electric.
Okay.
And it was black and white. I still have it. Its name is Florist. And it was $75, and I bought it. And I just thought, I was going against my ex's wishes at the time, which was scary.
You were being a rebel.
I was. I had my own opinion.
Women aren't supposed to have those.
Well, in his world, nobody's supposed to have those, right? It's not limited just to my species.
Or your gender, yes.
Right. So anyway, I brought this thing home, and I really thought, oh man, I hope this doesn't turn into a coat hanger, but I just want to make it do something pretty. And so I started taking lessons from Carrie, and
I'm sorry, you met him at that Red Lion place?
Yeah.
His band was performing there, so that's how you got connected with him. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Go ahead.
Right. And so Kerry was fantastic. Like, he was such a great teacher. He really just made me fall in love with the guitar, like, right away.
You mean he wasn't just trying to sleep with you like all musicians do?
What a shock, right? I mean,
there are good people in the world.
Yeah. I mean, to Carrie's credit, like, my ex actually went to one of the lessons and just, like, sat in this tiny little room and glared at him, because allegedly he wanted to make sure it was on the up and up. Right?
Jesus.
I know, right?
The level of insecurity here. Again, everybody has their mental health issues, so I don't want to pile on, but go ahead with Carrie's story.
In my world, I'm like, oh, it must mean he loves me.
God. Oh, yes.
Okay, so.
The damage that they can do to other people, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, so you started taking lessons from him,
so
and you started on electric guitar.
Yeah, I started
That's
on electric
$75
guitar.
Fender.
Uh-huh. And I just fell in love with it. I really did. Like, I just couldn't get enough. Like, I just played and played and played, and I wanted to be a shredder. So I wanted to be like a lead guitar shredder, classic rock
Like an
monster.
Eddie Van Halen, Steve Vai, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yes, I love that stuff. You know, the more distortion, the better, right? And so, and so I had this landmark birthday coming up, and my spouse said,
When you were going to turn 30, right?
exactly, or 20 or something, right? And so my spouse said, okay, you know, landmark birthday, you can do whatever you want. What do you want? And I wanted to go to guitar camp. And so I found this really cool guitar camp in between Vancouver, BC, and Whistler. And one of my spouse's employees also had an interest in the guitar camp. So, you know, I went with the other person.
Is this like a weekend getaway thing? Or
It's like a week-long immersive situation.
So you go and stay there for a whole week?
Yes.
Okay.
So you go to, it was a really secluded, I can't think of the name of the college, but this really secluded little college in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And it was during the summer, so everything was closed. So there was no radio, no television. You stay in the dorms, and you wake up in the morning, you have breakfast together, you learn all day long in different workshops and sessions, and then that night you get on stage and you perform for all the other musicians.
Oh,
so there's a
wow.
lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all different levels.
But that's a really good way to learn. I mean, fast.
Exactly. It's like getting
Wow.
shoved in the pool.
Yeah. Throw you in the lake, learn to swim.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so the first day I was in the shredder class, and I was, you know, I was really old for the shredder class. Like,
Had you already, before you went to this, kind of just on your own messed around? Well, you'd been taking lessons. I'm sorry. You'd already been taking lessons from Carrie.
yes.
So you had a clue, but this was like an advanced camp.
Yeah, it was all different levels, but there were a lot of really good people. And
Okay.
in the shredder class, it was mostly teenagers, and so you go around the room, there were maybe 40 people in that section, and everybody was sort of showing off for everybody else. And so before the class got started, everyone's like,
Yeah.
right? And I'm sitting there like just sweating bullets, thinking, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And you have to like sort of audition, you know, for your level in front of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thing is going around the table with all of these people, you know, 40-ish people. And as it's getting closer to me, like I'm having trouble breathing.
Panic attack.
Full panic attack. Ended up gasping for breath, went out in the hallway, like doubled over. It was just not good.
And you paid for this.
And I paid for that. I did. And so I'm out in the hallway, and, you know, the horrified instructor came out, you know, and mopped me up. And I'm like, dude, I can't go back in there. And he said, well, you know that all they know are the riffs they're doing right now, right?
Yep.
But I just couldn't. And so he said, well, do you want to go to the acoustic section? And so I said, sure. And so acoustic section was like 6 older guys with their acoustic guitars. And
Okay.
so I came in, the only girl with my electric guitar. They called me Rock Chick.
I can see that, yeah.
Yeah. And actually, I was wearing this very bracelet.
How appropriate.
But I
Leather
went...
and studs.
But so because I was the only chick and the only one sort of willing to sing, they the first song we performed was a Rolling Stones song, and they had me sing it, and I remember just the euphoria of getting off the stage. Afterwards, I was so happy, just all the way through my bones.
It's like a drug.
Yeah, I went into the bathroom, and I took a picture of myself in the mirror because I realized this is the happiest I've ever been.
You were glowing.
It fed my soul.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, okay, I'm not going to be a shredder. I just want a framework from my voice.
Yeah. Yeah. So you made the switch to acoustic at that point and picked up an acoustic guitar. Did you spend the rest of the camp kind of focused on the acoustic thing then?
Yeah, I stayed with that section the whole time, and just blended my electric guitar in with the acoustics.
Yeah, you just played it clean, and you could work on that. So that side note, because I started on electric when I was a freshman in college. My roommate is a guitar virtuoso. He's actually in a band that plays all over the area now, and he's a teacher. But he started me on electric, and then I dropped guitar for like almost 20 years before I got. My mom bought me an acoustic, and I started going. And by that age, I was more into the acoustic thing too. I was just like singer songwriter. I don't want to shred. I want to be able to sit around a campfire and play and sing. The neck is obviously thinner on an electric. The strings are closer to the fretboard. So in some ways, I remember when I first started practicing acoustic, I was like, God, it's so much easier to make these chords on an electric. You don't have to press down as hard. You don't have to stretch your fingers as much. But there's something about the sound and tone quality of a true acoustic. Even if you play an electric clean, it's not the same.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't know where I was going with that. I think I just was. You inspired me because you were talking about your switch from electric to acoustic. Do you still dabble in electric then? I'm assuming. Could you still have that guitar?
Right. Yeah. So I have 9 now, and the last one I bought is a T5. So it's a mahogany Taylor.
Okay.
That is it's a semi-hollow body with 5 different pickup positions, and so it can sound someplace between acoustic on one end and electric on the other, and then the stuff in between.
Okay.
So I'm playing around with that right now. But I like the sound of both.
So coming back from after that, you made that switch at the band camp thing, and you came back. How did your journey to where you're now actually performing? Did you just keep taking lessons from Carrie after that?
I did for a while, and I tried some other instructors, which isn't uncommon, right? Typically, you get to a level, you plateau, and then you need to explore different things.
Right.
So I had another instructor call. His name was Mark Martin, and he's passed away now. But he did this like hybrid finger picking style with strumming and finger picking that was really beautiful, and so it was nice doing that.
Is that technique where you're keeping a hold of the pick in your hand, but you're going back and forth between finger and pick? Is that kind of what you're talking about? Like transitioning really quickly, but you never drop the pick?
I think that's one version of it.
Okay.
The version that Mark did was instead of like actually keeping like a solid sort of thumping sort of rhythm, right? Like you would with a campfire guitar.
Right.
There would be some of that, and then also, that would stop, and there would be some beautiful finger picking, in between. So it's this interesting sort of arrangement that is a little like lighter and airier on the ear.
Okay. And then, so when you came back, kept going with the acoustic thing, at what point did you start deciding, look, I want to go perform somewhere?
So I did a little bit of performing with Jeannie, the two of us, just like 1 or 2 venues as a duo. And then she moved out of the area, and it wasn't until, I didn't really take it seriously, and I didn't really find that I had a valid point of view, which I still struggle with, right? Having a valid point of view is an important thing.
In reference to as a performer?
Yes.
Okay.
Until 2020. So 2020 when
all the shit went down.
Yeah, when everything changed for everybody, right? So
yeah.
At
well, and
least,
I also meant your shit went down too.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm glad that all of us were experiencing something at that point. I didn't feel, I felt isolated in that I was grounded. I couldn't like run away like I would have probably.
Yeah.
But anywho, when all of that went down, I was just really broken down to like just nothing. I in the course of like getting free from that, I had 3 they call TIAs, little mini strokes.
Oh.
And from the time that I discovered my life wasn't really my life, to the time I was fully divorced on December 18th of that same year, it was lightning speed. And
mini strokes caused by the stress, I'm assuming?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
I lost 16 pounds almost immediately.
You don't have 16 pounds to lose, girl. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was.
That's
I
not
was
good.
scared. I felt like
Yeah.
I was disappearing. You
Yeah.
know, and I really, and it was really really frightening. There was, threats and anyhow.
Yeah.
We'll see if we circle back to that or not. But it
Yeah,
was
man.
really awful.
Maybe on episode 2.
Really awful. So, I found that I really couldn't play anything. I mean, first I didn't want to. All the venues were shut down, and I just couldn't play. I didn't have any, desire to. And then when I did try to play something, I would just sob
Yeah.
through every song. Like every single one I had to fight to take back. And so as I sort of fought through, getting each of those songs back, I ended up deciding to do what they call busking.
So it's funny. I had to look that up because we were messaging a few days ago, and you went down to the waterfront and were busking. And of course, me being an arrogant guy, I just rolled with it like, oh, that's super awesome. And then I immediately Google, what is busking? Because I had never heard that expression. But you started busking, and here in downtown Vancouver, or just you found locations?
Yeah, so I just really felt like I needed to make music, right? I don't understand why it's healing completely, but it is.
It very much is.
So first place I tried it was Camas, downtown Camas.
Okay.
And I did it just without any amplification or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second place I did it was down at the waterfront.
Do you have to ask permission from the businesses, or you just? I mean, nobody bothers you, right? I'm assuming.
No, nobody's
going to
bothered
come
me.
over and try to kick you out if you don't have a permit. I'm assuming. I don't know. I've never done it. Do you have a story?
No.
Why did you exhale?
Oh, government.
Is that a tangent?
Nothing I'll put online.
Okay, we'll talk about it after I stop the recording. I'll stop the recording and then we can talk about it. But anyway, Camas, the waterfront.
Yeah.
So you started busking before you ever performed at a venue.
Yeah, to come back out
Out
right?
of that funk.
Yeah, out of that funk, right? So I started busking, and every time I would go out, I just felt a little stronger. I just felt a little better. People started stopping and listening, and it started, making me. It built me up, honestly. It built me up to, feeling like, I had some strength.
It was healing.
It was very healing, and it was connective. And what I realized is that I'm a better musician after what happened to me, because it's our brokenness that connects us, right? And there's a vulnerability in standing up in front of people with your voice and your guitar and no backing tracks, nothing else, no other musicians backing you up. And standing up there and singing to people is
completely vulnerable.
Powerful. It's a powerfully connective experience that you need to use the right way. I mean, if you make eye contact with somebody when you're singing to them, it's like it's this soul to soul situation.
Yeah.
That is deep. And
Yep.
And so what I started realizing was this music is healing me, but also people are now coming and talking to me about, I'm suicidal, or I have a drug problem, or I'm lonely, and I'm just broken and nobody cares about me. And it was fantastic to be able to take these really crappy experiences and then start seeing some meaning in them, and the music was a way to do that.
Yeah.
So it actually made it something awful into something really beautiful that I wouldn't trade.
And then once we get far enough through the pandemic, eventually venues start opening again, and is that kind of how you started connecting with I saw you've done a winery. You obviously do the fish house. You just kind of started reaching out to these people when they opened up again and said, hey, I'd like to come perform. Is that kind of just cold calling them? Is that kind of how you did it?
It just started happening. Like, honestly, I say I'm not driving this bus. I'm just on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I all of a sudden started getting these venues that are just fantastic. Like I play Ponderosa.
Yeah,
I
I
play,
know the manager. Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
I play Spirit Mountain.
Oh, that's awesome. I
Um,
think I have seen some videos of that. Yes. Yes.
yeah, a lot of wineries and restaurants and some corporate things, with Remax and with WFG, and just all these terrific opportunities like this. Right, this is so random that
And
that you
that you couldn't figure out where to put your windshield wiper fluid.
right. Yeah.
Everything
It's
happens
true.
for a reason.
Exactly. Yeah, and I do love that. And that's what I mean by like I'm not driving the bus. Like
Yeah.
I'm really really happy to be on the music bus, this is my people. This is the community that opened their arms up and made me feel loved or feel like I wasn't an asshole. For the first time in my life, it was the music community here. They're absolutely fantastic and warm and wonderful. It's the best place to live.
I totally agree with that. Oh, I have. So that's the community. It's interesting you use that word. I haven't sent it to you yet because I keep watching it. And I'm like, oh, that's really raw. But I told you over the messenger that there was that time I was house and dog sitting for my daughter and her fiance, and I recorded myself using his studio because he's turned the basement of his house into like a recording studio, but it also has like an entire stage set up so bands can perform there, but they can also come rehearse. So when I had the whole house to myself, when they were, I think they were in Hawaii for like a week, and I was house sitting for them. I set up my little tablet and just plugged in, used his PA, and I think I just noodled around for like 23 or 25 minutes, and I just recorded it all. And that's what I'm afraid to send you because it's so raw and I messed up so many chords. But
You
anyway,
said there was cursing. Was
there
there
was some
just
cursing.
cursing, or was there singing and cursing?
No, I sang. I would
Yeah.
sing and play, but in the middle of it, I was kind of almost recording it for my daughter and her fiance, so I would talk to them as I'm recording, and then I would play and whatever. I think I'm more embarrassed about my playing and singing because I was having so much. I told you I was having so much trouble finding the gosh damn key. I'm still learning. Singing and playing at the same time obviously takes a lot of work, but also finding the right key, not going too high, when to use your full voice, when to use your head voice, stuff like that. But again, the point of that was community. So Alex has created this space, and he just lets like random bands come in. Like there's a band that rehearses there every Tuesday. He doesn't charge them. He lets them just use the space. He hosts fundraising events a few times a year where he'll have the bands come in and they'll perform. And he doesn't like charge a cover charge, but he has like Venmo or whatever, and he'll say, hey, scan the QR code, support the honeypot. He calls it the honeypot. But it's all about supporting local bands, local musicians, raising money for them, giving them exposure, giving them a place to do their thing. And I thought of that because, again, the music community in Vancouver, Portland area is amazing. And you just meet a lot of good people, and these connections, I think, are really important. It is. It's inspiring. It's good juju.
Yeah, it really is.
If that's
yeah.
the word.
Yeah, and we're so fortunate because if you go to the places that traditionally you think of as the places to be for music, which would be like Nashville or Austin, right? I've had friends that have moved to those places and they're so disillusioned because this is the sweet spot. Like we have the right number of venues to play at, and this deep pool of musicians. And musicians here can actually, earn a living, actually, if you go to these other places, Nashville or Austin, there's too much talent, not enough venues.
It's oversaturated.
Exactly. So people play for free, or it's a pay to play situation,
Yep.
So this is really fantastic. It's, I'm so grateful, to have sort of stumbled on this accidentally, in 2020. It was actually it was a house party somebody invited me to. One of my old neighbors said, these people get together and do karaoke. And I thought, ugh,
Karaoke's the best.
Yeah, I thought, okay, that what I had in mind was, I'm gonna go there. It's gonna be, like, a Casio sounding backing track, and
Right.
we're gonna take turns with, with this like child's microphone.
Yes.
And so I show up at this house party with super low expectations, and this guy that looks a lot like Billy Idol's there, and this guy that looks a lot like Rod Stewart is there, and the people that are singing these are the people I used to see on stage.
So they had a proper PA system set up.
They had a wall of amplification, and they had, I think, 8 microphones stood up, and these were all professional musicians that just had no place to play at that point.
So were they using actual karaoke tracks, or were there live musicians playing?
Some of both.
Really?
They were just like.
So they had
pulling
some
things
sound
up.
choice karaoke tracks
Yeah.
going, but they also sometimes would play instruments.
Yes.
That's awesome. And you sang?
Yeah, right. And so it was like such a happy surprise to go there and talk to these people, and everybody was super nice. And I'm like, and again, I'm like, well, people are being nice to me. This is really weird, right?
You weren't used to that?
So I got to sing, and and apparently I didn't suck, because
No, you have a great voice.
Thank you. Because after that, like, they're inviting me, well, do you want to do this, do you want to do that, and it just like spread out, to this community. So that one silly little house party that I almost said no to,
Made all the difference.
made all the difference.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Tell me, we're over an hour, so we can wrap it up in a little bit. But I'm curious, and I want to get this on record. Tell me about the jam session at 99 Saloon. Just because I've tried to go to it several times, and then by the end of my Sunday workday, I either had to work overtime or I'm just exhausted and I can't make it. But since you told me about it, of course I've overthought it, because that's what I do. And in my head, I'm like, the entire Sunday I'm at work, I'm like, okay, how am I going to do this? I'm literally planning out, do I bring my guitar the first time, or do I not? Do I just go check it out? And then if I do bring my guitar, I probably should just leave it in my truck and just go in and meet the people. I don't want to walk in just all cocky with a guitar slung over my shoulder and, hey guys, I'm here to join the jam. But yeah, so it starts at 6, and is it just super casual? These musicians just kind of wander in at around 6 p.m. Do they sit around in a circle and kind of tune? Yes, I'm overanalyzing it. Do they kind of just start tuning up and have conversation as they're putting their guitars in tune? And then at some point somebody says, all right, let's try to play something. And does somebody bring a chord progression they've been working on? Or stop laughing at me.
No, I'm laughing with you.
No, you're laughing near me.
No, I'm laughing because, like, this is all of the same stuff I struggle with it, right? So it shouldn't work. It is an absolute improbable proposition that just works, sometimes, right? So what it looks like is everybody shows up. Sometimes there are tons of people. Sometimes there aren't that many people. And
I guess, is it all unplugged, or do they plug into the PA?
oh, they plug in. It is loud.
Shit. More pressure. Okay.
Loud.
So the random customers that happen to be in the bar that night have to just put up with this.
Yes. I had to stop and think, are there any random customers, or is
On a
everybody...
Sunday night at 7 p.m., are there just not a lot of regular customers? Almost everybody in the bar is for the jam kind of a thing?
Everybody's there for the jam.
Okay.
Everybody's there for the jam. So some people come to dance. Mostly it's musicians. And,
Okay.
And so everybody shows up. They all pile in. There's one person that's in every band in Vancouver named Vic
Okay.
that runs it, and he plays keyboards usually for it. And when he sees somebody walk in that has an instrument, he'll just kind of casually go over and say, "You want to play?" And if you say
He's
yes,
that welcoming.
yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. So if you say yes, then he has some technique that he uses to decide who plays with who.
Okay.
And
So there is kind of a leader, that an organizer that, so like the first time I show up, there's somebody that's going to like be, okay, your first time, this is what you should do.
no, No, he will ask you if you want to play.
And if I say yes,
And if you say yes, you won't know what happens after that. There's no sign up sheet. You don't know who you're playing with.
will he tell me where to set or stand?
No. No. He'll say, what do you want to play? Like, what instrument?
Oh, okay.
You don't know the song. You don't know who you're playing with. You don't know when you're going to be playing, right?
Okay.
And then at a certain point, like, he'll kind of walk over casually and say, "You're up next."
And then you just do what you want to do. So at
Kind
that
of.
point, he's kind of inviting you to just start with the song you're comfortable with. Just play it.
Well, see, no, that's where it gets weird because
Of course, it had to get weird.
right, because you know, generally you're playing with like a drummer, a bass player, a guitar player, you know, maybe a lead and a rhythm guitar player, maybe a harmonica player. There's a guy that has a washboard. There's the keyboard.
Anybody bring a fiddle in?
There are 2 saxophone
Okay,
players
that's awesome.
generally, like, and so you have all of these people and you really don't know like what things are going to look like. If you're doing lead singing, then you can like call a song and say like, okay, well, these are the songs that I want to do. And then you say as a lead singer, like, so who knows those songs? And when you're on stage, like they might not know those songs when you get up. So,
Right.
So then, sometimes it's a situation where you're on the horse and sometimes it's a situation where you're under the horse.
Or it bucks you off. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this calmed my nerves hearing this explanation or not. I'm still going to do it. I'm going to try to go this Sunday
Okay.
if everything works out. So should I leave my guitar in the truck and go meet them first, or should I walk in with it? What's your advice?
Well, I mean, we all have our style, right? I can tell you that usually I leave mine in the car, to kind of see like what my level is for the evening.
So what if I just walk in, because I have a soft case. What if
Yeah.
I walk in, it has a shoulder strap. Just walk in and say, Sparrow told me to come. What's up, guys?
You'll get a big hug.
I figured.
Yeah, yeah, because they really are just that wonderful. They really are. But I can't tell you what'll happen after that, like
Oh,
in terms
gosh.
of like who and where.
But
and
that
how.
almost makes it better.
Now you can go up by yourself and do something by yourself, but then people are disappointed.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't want to. Also, I don't. It's not. I don't want the spotlight on me. I just want to. I think I told you when we first met that like I need experience playing with other musicians because I've 4 years of just practicing on my own. It's a different dynamic when you're trying to play with other musicians to stay in tempo and all that stuff. So that's what I want more of. I definitely don't want the spotlight on me. I just want to learn how to play with a band.
Well, what I would suggest is just show up, bring your wife. If I know you're coming, I will do my best to come too.
Yeah, no
but-
pressure. Now that we've talked more about it, I was originally I was like, I'm not going to go if Sparrow's not going to be there. I need a friendly face.
Well, I'd love
But
to
now I'm
introduce
fine
you.
going if you don't have to be there. No
I'd
pressure.
love to introduce you to people though, because it really is just really a lovely community, honestly.
Good. I'm excited.
Okay.
We can wrap it up now. You have been way too gracious with your time, and I seriously appreciate you providing the space. This made it so much easier than trying to do it at my place.
It's my pleasure.
We can do a part 2 too. Also, I'd be happy to record with you again. You were amazing, and I have a feeling there's a lot more to your story that we could get into. Good. I want to hear a lot more good stuff too.
Well, thank
Obviously,
you.
so there should be a part 2.
Well, this was super fun. Thank you so much for having me.
And I cannot wait to look at your studio. I'm just gonna hit pause and pack my gear up, and we'll check out your space.
Okay.